for Massachusetts, and we had a liaison office for the state of Massachusetts to the European Union in Brussels. So we even have these in the United States. I have to tell you, I thought it was very expensive and we weren't getting a lot of production, so I shut it out of the budget. Which is a lesson to you, Ezekiel. Don't have it. But we did have it. We had it for many states have liaison offices all over the world to protect their interests. And there's no issue with a civil war in the United States now, so we don't even have to have a CPA in the United States, although sometimes some of us think we do. I have to tell you, my first trip to Sudan was just after the Great Famine of 1988-89. And I went with Bill Garvelink, and we visited the city of Malakal. And a very moving event took place, which I will never forget. We were going through the village, the city, and many people, thousands of people had died in this terrible famine. About 250,000 Southerners died. They died, believe it or not principally because of the Civil War, but because of a flood that caused rinderpest and several cattle diseases to kill as many as 2 million cows. You know, the Southerners all say, if the cows die, we die. In those days, 70% of the nutrition of people was from the milk and the cows. And if the cows died, there was no food, people died. And that was true in Malakal. And we went there, and the famine had really been ended. The famine took place under Sadiq al-Mahdi's government, a democratically elected government, stonewalled the relief effort by the United States, and only international outrage overcame Sadiq al-Mahdi's opposition to the relief effort. This is before the current government took office, of course. And I went to Malakal, and we met the headmaster of the local school, and he had 24 children in his several little huts. And I said to him, I know there's a custom in the South to have more than one wife. And he said, no, I'm a Christian, I have one wife. And I said, your wife had 24 children, and he didn't say anything. And I said, where is your wife? She died in the famine, and all my children died in the famine. I said, if all your children died, and how many children did you have before the famine? You were 24. I didn't say this to him. I just thought it, and I was very confused, and I went up to the ICRC delegate, who was distributing, by the way, Food for Peace, USAID food, which was the only food supply at that point in that village. And he said he didn't tell you how these are his adopted children. He went around the city himself near death, and he scooped up all of the living children who were his pupils in his school that he was the headmaster in. He took them back. The ICRC provided food and medical care, and he revived the 24 children. He adopted them all, and he was bringing them up. And you could see the emotional bond between this great man, this man of grace, and these 24 children. And the story was most intriguing to me because two most respected figures in southern towns are not political leaders or intellectuals at a high level. They're the local school teachers and the priests and the pastors. And it is a sign of the health of the values of the South and the culture of the South, which after 22 years of civil war, the most respected figures are teachers and religious figures. And that is indication to me that even with terrible suffering, that the values are still intact in the South, and that people have a high view of where the future is. I have to say there are many countries in the world, North and South, where you would not say that the most respected figures are the religious figures or the teachers in the local level. But the fact that it is in the South, even today, is an indication of how healthy Southern culture is. I also came to realize in Massachusetts politics, which I was for many years, I was regarded as tall. I guess I looked down at I was a Republican. I looked down at the Democrats in the state legislature because they were shorter than I was. I'm sorry, Congressman Payne. That was not. But I have to say, I met Dr. Garang in 1989, and the only people in the world that I look way up to are the Southerners. They are enormous people. I mean, not just in their hearts, but of course their physical presence is very powerful. And I learned over the years from talking to Dr. John in his many visits there and my many visits to the South and to Darfur in the North what his vision was. And his vision, of course, was in a unified Sudan. That remained his vision to the day he died. And I remember talking to some friends of mine who were Arab Muslims. In fact, they were, believe it or not, they were Islamicists in the North. And they say, when the elections come, we are voting for Dr. John for president. And I said, wait a second, you're going to vote for a Southerner who's a Christian for president of Sudan. He said, many of us have decided to do that. And he told me this, and Dr. John told me when he came after the war was over, when the CPA had been signed and the new government was installed, he came back. He told me 4 million people visited him, and I thought it was a little bit of an exaggeration. I said, Dr. John, there are only 2 million Southerners. Who could the other 2 million people be? And then I realized that many Northern Arabs went to hear Dr. John speak because they saw the future unity of the country based on the vision he had for the country. This was just a few months before his death. I want to say the reason I came today was that I see this office as a supplement to the Comprehensive Peace Agreement. It is here to do what we in Massachusetts did with the European Union, to enhance the relations between the United States and our European friends through the state liaison offices that exist around the world, just as this office will supplement the work of the Embassy of Sudan and of the Sudanese government of national unity. I see that this office is pursuing that function. Many people are assuming in the North, and other people, that the vote has already taken place in the South, and the Southerners have already decided what they're going to do. I should tell you, having been in politics for many years in Massachusetts, never assume how the people are going to vote. Never assume anything. It is their right to vote how they're going to vote, and until they vote on the referendum about the future of the country, we should not make any assumptions as to what they're going to do. It's up to them to decide, not the political leaders in the North or the South. It's up to them. They have the sovereignty to decide the future of the country. And until that happens, I think we should all simply remember Dr. John's vision of a united Sudan. And I think this office is going to enhance that. The last thing I want to say is this. A lot of people talk about the things that have not been implemented in the CPA, and there are many things that have not. And there are, criticisms of the North and the South as to who didn't do what and all this. But I prefer always, because politics is very difficult even in the United States, not just in Sudan, to look at the good things that have happened. Peace is a benefit in and of itself without the other legal provisions of the CPA. Why is that? There has been no famine in southern Sudan. There's no starvation since the peace was signed. There's no war anymore. People who were born displaced are now going back to their ancestral homes. Hundreds of thousands of people are going back to their homes to live their lives in peace again. The economy is booming. The dramatic drop in food prices in Juba and the huge amount of stuff that's being imported, both from the north but also from Uganda and Kenya, that's now in the markets in the southern cities, is an indication of the economic boom that is going on. Now, it's also helpful, with all of the weaknesses of the northern government, they have transferred $1 billion. It's maybe not enough, but can you imagine 5 years ago or 17 years ago, the northern government giving the southerners $1 billion in oil revenues? I couldn't conceive of it. It is not perhaps what everybody wants, but it is an extraordinary shift in what's happened in the relations between the North and the South to have all that money. And that money is going to be critically important, not just in terms of the development of the South, in terms of institutions, but the building of schools and health clinics and roads, as you mentioned earlier. And so the President Bush just wanted to say to all of you, we are committed, both parties, all branches of government, to the vision of a rebuilt South, or a newly built South, because we're not really rebuilding a lot. It wasn't there in the first place. The South was the most neglected area in the world in many respects. This is building for the first time the kinds of services and institutions that a country needs. So we are committed to that. It was my charge from the President to help do that. We want to work, of course, on the Darfur situation. We are not going to forget the South, and after going there for 18 years now, I am certainly not going to forget the South. So congratulations on this office, and congratulations for being here.